Hello, people. Welcome back to the One Take Show. In this episode, we are in conversation with Mr. Kuber Mahajan. Kuber is the associate with Saikrishna and Associates. The reason why Kuber is here on the podcast is because we're going to talk about his extremely virtuous achievements, that is, authoring 3 books. He's authored, and I'm going to name them without making any mistake whatsoever, is Traditional and Modern Forms of Talaq under Muslim Law. Secondly, is Election Laws in India. And thirdly, is Election Law and Practice in India. We always know as law students how important such books are, not just from the research perspective, but also understanding such laws which contemporary to our society. And I think in this conversation we talk about his experience in law school, what are the major takeaways, what he believes really benefits him, and what has helped him to somehow create a niche in the industry as of this moment. So if you like this episode, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you have any suggestions or feedbacks, write them down in the comment section. I would love to read them. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's start the podcast.
You want something, go get it. Period.
3, 2, and 1, we're recording. Hello, Kuber. Welcome to the One Take Show. I am so excited to have you on the podcast. And as I've been researching a little bit about you, I've realized there's so much that we can talk about. One of the major things that I'm really a fan of is perhaps authoring books. I've always wanted to write books as a childlike dream that I've ever had. But here we have a guest with us who's actually done it. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation, and thank you so much for taking time off your very busy schedule.
Thank you so much, Kaustubh, and it's a big honor for me to be finally on the One Take Show, and I must congratulate you on such a successful venture of yours. So kudos to that, and all the best for the future. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. And you know what? I understand that why it's almost for every law student, it's almost very important to have conversations, especially now, from your seniors when we talk about getting guidances. Because in my final year now, I've been trying to get more and more interpretations of how career works out and how law school works out and what I could have done better. And I feel like if I could have a conversation with my first year self, I would have it. So yeah, let's begin with that. When we look at your law school life, what was that like? What was your major experiences and takeaways?
So those 5 years were really memorable, and I remember when I was in class 12, I was not very satisfied with my board marks. So I had scored 90%, but I was really furious with myself that I should have done better. So I'm very close to my mother. So I told her that मम्मी अब कुछ भी हो जाए मैं law school में जाके बहुत अच्छा करूँगा. So I had that fire in me. So I talked to my cousins that bhaiya I have to do well because I'm really unhappy with myself. So when I started my law school, so I had this thing in my mind. So that really helped, and I can say that everything happens for the best. So because of those marks, I had that motivation in me to do well in my law school. So I decided that from the very first day, whatever has been taught in the class, I'll revise after coming back. So that really helped again. So academically speaking, it was for the first time that I started topping. So during my school days, it was a lone patch where I was not able to achieve that very rank. So I realized that okay, this is something which has happened after many years. So I must continue with this. So additionally, I figured it out that right, there are extracurricular activities as well in law, such as moot coach, client counseling, trial by advocacy, and many more. So again, back to my school days, I was popular only for two things. Number one, I will come to my school and straight away go to my dramatics room and give my attendance to my class teacher. That's it. That was school for me basically. So from a very young age, I was very fascinated with extracurricular activities, which which always motivated me to choose my career path also. So I was very much confused between LLB and mass communication. And I had this thing in my mind that if I do mass communication, I will be able to do a lot more extracurricular activities. So purely on that basis, I had decided mass communication earlier. But during my entrance exams, I felt that no, law is something more interesting and I may see this profession as my career. So I chose this path, and fortunately, I was among one of the only law students who, along with the mass communication team, used to go to their competitions as well as to the legal competitions. So I realized that in this case, I'm figuring and covering each and every aspect which I wanted to do, along with the academic records. So these 5 years was certainly very memorable for me, and authoring books during these 5 years was certainly another aspect which I can never forget. And that disrespect for myself during the 12th class exams was certainly overturned, and I was satisfied with those 5 years, if I say so.
Fair. I think when I was sort of looking at your profile, I realized that you've participated in almost anything and everything. I mean, you've specifically written a lot. That's one thing that I sort of am not that deep into. But you've mooted, you've simultaneously done all the other things. As you mentioned, you were involved in dramatics, at least in your school, and then later on, you've done conferences like MUNs, and you've chaired them. You've also represented, and all of these things. So my first question is obviously, and while also performing very good academically, so there was no sacrifice on the academic side, which is a pretty important aspect of this conversation. So when we talk about all of these mixed variants of interpretation in law school, right, where we have the ability to maneuver in different activities, how did you, let's say, go back to the basics when we say time manage, or how did you go about picking, choosing what activity to do, and how to prioritize your work? What was that experience like?
So I already decided that I had to manage these things, and I need to learn this from a very young age if possible. So, as I told you, in school, I realized this fact that I was not managing it pretty well. Because if I'm only indulged into extracurricular activities, that is not fair upon my studies as well. So, that was the primary goal for me. So, that's why I made sure whenever my classmates or juniors used to ask that how to manage both activities as well as the academic purposes. So my sole answer was always to be disciplined. So if, for example, if anything has been taught in the class, I used to make sure that whenever I reach home, I have to revise that very thing and complete it on the very same day. So that really helped me, because I am a person who never believes to mangle all the things on the last night of the exam. So I do not want to work in a panicky situation. Of course, in our profession, that is not allowed. But my purpose was always to avoid this situation as much as possible. So certainly there were certain hiccups one night before the examination, but comparatively to, or in comparison to other students, it was slightly less, I should say. So that certainly helped. I used to make a proper timetable that, right, Friday will be a free day for me. For me, Friday meant free day. Which then I will only and only watch movies or do anything which I like. Rest of the days, I'll make sure that at least 2 hours I give after college, so that it at the end of the day helps me during my exams. And also I was really focusing on extracurricular activities as well. So it was really important for me to balance both these aspects. If I love to do extracurricular activities, my respect for studies should not be reduced. So eventually that also helped me to have a better understanding of law, if I may say. Because naturally, if you are inculcating yourself into these concepts on a regular basis, and academics, trust me, really helps you to gather a lot of knowledge. Because many people believe that if you study 1 or 2 nights before, you can clear the exams. Certainly you may clear the exam, but the understanding aspect, if you're not giving yourself that time, that creates the basic and in terms of an advocate, or if I may say, a reputed advocate in the future. At least I have this belief.
Yeah. Okay, Kuber, just tell me what you think about this. Okay. When we talk about academics, one of the interpretations that I've seen is that anything that is taught in law school is not going to come to your aid, or is not very useful when it comes to real life practice. My take on this is that most of the basic groundwork learning, for example, CPC, right now in my final year, I'm actually brushing up my CPC knowledge, reading more and more in depth, right? Which I should have done in my second, third year, perhaps. So in my opinion, academics might not give us a practical insight into the practice, might not train us with research skills or drafting skills, perhaps. But a very core, in-depth understanding of the principles comes from academics. What do you think about this?
Actually, I believe there are two aspects to this question which can go. So both the things goes hand in hand. Certainly, academics is a very important aspect, and definitely if there are subjects to study, these are for certain purposes. It is not only because it has to be done, it has some importance. So for example, whenever I used to study these things, my theoretical knowledge was always clear. So for example, if a student has a belief that he or she should be joining a firm setup or do their internships in a firm or any litigation chamber, primarily or as a beginner, they'll first give you a research work. And that research work, or the if you have the basic knowledge that yes, I have read particular section pertaining to this proposition, so that gives you a basic start as compared to to the other person. So it is like if a cricketer says that I do not require any net practice, I know how to play, he can play, but certainly that net practice is important for their improvement, at the end of the day. So again, academics is certainly important, but in many webinars, I always say that extracurricular activities is also important, and which I have a very strong belief in. Because I
Yeah.
believe academics is certainly important, but your personality is developed through those extracurricular activities. Your confidence, your motivation, and the confidence to interact with others is very important in practical life. So as you said that that litigation experience or the drafting, or for example you have to argue before the court, those aspects I feel another aspect of academics is very important for brushing those skills, and that is the concept of moot courts. So that is also covered under the academic syllabus, and that is also a part of extracurricular activities. So my purpose of doing moot courts, number one, I really wanted to do because that was something which is my hobby since my school days. Number two, it really helped me to improve those theoretical knowledge mixed with the practical aspect. So the reason I'm saying this is that when as you have interviewed many people who have done a lot of moot courts. So when I used to do moot courts, I used to read the proposition. So my brain used to start working, right. I have read this particular section or something related to this proposition during my classes. Right. This proposition is based upon a landmark precedent which I have certainly read upon. So you see, I already know that very thing, that where I have to start from. So that really helps. So both of them are really important, and certainly are if one of them is not done correctly, the other one cannot take place, which again is my belief.
True, true. And I think to that extension, I think there was one article that I was reading by a senior advocate who said that legal profession is a profession not just about the legal personality that you have, but also the human personality, majoritarily the human personality of your ability to connect, network, to handle the clients, and to perhaps have the confidence to brief your senior, reach out to your seniors, or perhaps attend to the courts. Now, when we look at activities like mootings, my major takeaway has been that my ability to read law, to interpret it, comes from my ability to decipher a problem and apply laws on it, and then go about this one proper procedure of research, drafting, argumentation, right? And that I think is indispensable and something that needs to be compulsorily juxtaposed with the academic culture. What do you think about that?
Absolutely right. In fact, I used to talk to my teachers, my dean, that these moot courts are really important for every law student, because Costo, I've observed that it is generally during third year, or for some students it is the end part of the second year, when they realize that right now it is very important for us to inculcate ourselves also into these activities, because there are some students who will be starting these activities from the very first year. And once you are observing these students, they also feel that they have achieved something, they have a lot more knowledge, or there is something different upon those students as compared to when they themselves compare to themselves. So mooting should be compulsory, which I also personally feel, because at the end of the day, as a lawyer, you cannot confine yourself to theoretical knowledge. Yes, it is important, but along with that, these mooting experiences certainly gives you the closest experience that you can get in a court. You are doing internships which may be for a month or 2 months, right? So after that also, if you're continuously doing these moot courts, number one, you are learning new laws at the same time. Number two, your legal mind is developing slowly and gradually. Because if you give time to your mind for thinking as a lawyer, so your mind can think as a layman or as a lawyer. That's why our profession is so special, that it makes us different from a common or a layman, because we know what are our rights. In India, unfortunately, there are so many people, irrespective whether they are educated or uneducated, they are not aware about the laws. They are not aware about their rights, which is really sad. So, as a society of lawyers or as a member of this community, if you are also not comfortable, or if you are also not able to think as an advocate or as a lawyer from your law school only, that will eventually make a bit of a difficult journey for you. So that's why I feel that mooting gives you that element, that experience, which in no other manner you can achieve. And similarly, other competitions like trial by advocacy and client counseling are really important at the same time. So I was fortunate that my college used to also organize intra-moot course, which used to be a really good experience for the students, because see, every team cannot get the opportunity, because you have to clear your rounds and then only you are selected. So that gives you the adequate experience as well as the knowledge, and at the same time the confidence that yes, now I know that how a moot is done. So tomorrow, if any XYZ person comes to me that I have no idea about mooting, number one, I can certainly pass on this knowledge, and number two, I, after passing the knowledge, can also improve upon my thoughts or upon myself. So this works certainly in terms of increasing your legal knowledge, developing your personality as a lawyer or a law student, as the case may be, and certainly you think as an advocate, not as a common man, which is very important in our profession.
Right, absolutely. I agree with everything that you say. And taking this to something else that you're very good at, and something that I am going to talk about with a very selfish intention, because I'm trying to acquire this skill. And I have everything noted down here. So I'm going to read out for all my viewers very quickly. So when it comes to publications, Mr. Kuber has actually done something phenomenal. He has authored 3 books. The first one is Traditional and Modern Form. And please feel free to correct me anytime you feel like I'm just going with the flow. All right. So the first book is The Traditional and Modern Forms of Talaq under Muslim Law. The second book is Election Laws in India. The third one is Election Laws in Practice in India. And all of them published by very reputable publishing houses, and talk about something very relevant. Apart from that, you've been awarded the Best Paper Award in National Level Paper Presentation Competition on Global Economic Development and Environmental Issues, and a publication on paper titled Indian Economic Transformations in 2017, and presentation of paper titled Honey Trap, an emerging cybercrime. That's something very specific I want to talk about, by the way. And the presentation of the paper titled Nationalism, a Synonym for Patriotism, a Critical Analysis. Well, that sounds like a perfect plotline for any clubhouse for any discussion, by the way. But let's start with publication, and let's start with writing. Okay, this is my major concern, and perhaps as a senior you can cater to it. My concern, not looking at it for something as humongous as writing a book, authoring a book and getting it published. Let's talk about something very simple: articles. Okay, when we talk about papers and all of those things, writing scares me a little bit. Perhaps why I feel scared that when I write something, it becomes permanent, it is in the public domain, and if I don't write something which is exceptional in nature, it will come back to haunt me, and that somehow stops me. So my question to you is, how do you go about writing? Let's talk about that.
Actually, I can't believe this, that I am being asked this question, because if you go back 5 years and if you'll ask any of my friends that Kuber Mahajan has authored or written something, they'll be like, nah, he only speaks, he doesn't write. So this was a big change in, again, my law school career. But nevertheless, it was a beautiful change, and I'm really happy that it happened. So, Kaustav, writing a book was something which internally I knew that yes, I would like to do it at some stage, because I remember during my 11th 12th, I had met a counselor where our school had organized some counseling sessions for our future. So I had a brief interaction, and they had given certain forms for us to fill. So that form contained the profession that you would be choosing in the future, or some other activities which you would like to do. So I remember I was ticking certain boxes like acting or cricket, anything which any child of 5-6 years would fantasize. I would just ticking them all. Then I saw writing books. So I thought, never mind, let's take that. I would like to do that, but I had no intentions or planning for that. So when I was in second year, that was the first time when I had read Muslim law particularly. And in fact, that is also very interesting, because when Muslim law classes were being taken place, I had gone to some other city for a moot court, and I had missed every single class for family law, because there were two back-to-back moot courts in two different cities. So I was like, okay, my family law understanding has gone to a very low grade, because I haven't attended any class. So my teacher was really sweet. I requested her, ma'am, if you can provide me an hour or so to teach me during these 2 weeks, that will be really helpful. So my teacher taught me the concepts of Muslim law, and I don't know, as soon as she taught me, I found it really interesting, and I thought, okay, I am fortunate enough that I am able to cover these 2 weeks. So at least for my exams, I could prepare. Then after that, I felt that no, this concept has really given me certain new aspects of thinking. So let me do a bit of research on it. So when I came home, I told my mother that I'm thinking of writing a book on Muslim law. So and I was in second year at that point of time. So I thought maybe she may consider that I'm joking. So I clarified, and I'm not kidding. You have to trust me that I will be writing a book. So she told me, ha, I trust you. You can write. So I thought, okay, so I have a backing with me that someone is trusting me. So let me write it now or start it. So eventually, this book would have completed a year earlier, or I should say 1.5 years earlier. But I was waiting for the judgment and then the bills that took place before the parliament. So that's why it got a bit delayed. So nevertheless, it was a wonderful experience. And certainly, once you start writing a book, you would want to do more and more. So my formula or my thinking while writing or authoring any book, or if I'm authoring any book in the future, would purely be based upon my interest. I was very clear from the very beginning that either I can choose the interest or the area of interest in which I want to write, or I can think the commercial success, that is, there are certain subjects for which you would assume that it will be a good sell. So I had these two different options. So I chose the interest part, because it was a very, very big struggle to find publishers, especially during my first book, because it taught me a lot. Certainly, it was something really new to me also. So I had to explore things. So it taught me that when I was writing, I was not thinking about the commercial success. It was only that I have to complete this book and try to give the best that I could give. So eventually, I got to know that publishers are generally only looking for their commercial interest, which is fair on their part. But for me, I was very clear, again, either it is interest or the commercial interest. So I went for the interest, and same for election laws in India. This is a subject which not many authors have explored. You will not find a lot of books in the libraries as well. So again, a lot of publishers had discouraged me that Mr. Mahajan, you must look for other subjects. We can suggest you certain subjects if you want to write for us, but write something in which we can earn certain profits. So I told them that if by chance that subject that you think is of a commercial success is of my interest, I'll certainly write. But as of now, my focus is only and only to fulfill my interest. Because again, while writing something, even the topics, if you see, which I have chosen in my publications, while writing something, it is very important that you have your heart and soul in it. Because writing at one point of time becomes really boring, because it's a long procedure. Writing a book takes at least a year or 2 years. So certainly there will be a phase when you will be thinking, right, I can't do this more, or I am really fed up of this, etc., etc. That is very, very natural. So if you know that, okay, I had chosen this very subject, I have the keen interest in it, and I want to learn on this more, so eventually you continue with them. And again, as you mentioned that if you have any fear that what will other people think, or if it will come back haunting you, that whether it was a good content or not, frankly, I would suggest to any person, if he or she is thinking, to not to overthink about this beautiful journey. Trust me, just live in the present and just continue with your work, right? Because if you will start analyzing whether it will be a commercial success, whether people will like it or not, you will you will not be able to focus on your book, which is very important. And there is no point of thinking about say next 6 months or 12 months or 2 years. Like who would have imagined that in 2020 there will be a pandemic, right? Everybody had their plans. Our batch had a lot of plans that, right, as soon as we get out of the college, we'll go to this firm, we'll join this advocate, etc. But nothing worked. So similarly, in book writing, you have to live in the present, and and self motivation is really really important. So that's why I always suggest, just go for the interest or the passion, or the subject in which you feel you can do or you can achieve something. So for example, if I don't like any particular subject, but again the publishers ask me that please write on that, so I simply tell them that I'm not at that particular stage right now where I can write anything, right? I need to develop myself as well, or my mind, that yes, I am ready for it. As of now, I am certainly at that particular stage where I can author books in a field in which I have the interest. So now publishers also understand my thinking, my thought process, and they are also welcoming, because if publishers are liking your content, certainly they will be accepting that content. So yeah, I feel these pointers are really important.
No, I'm just very curious. What are the subjects that these publication houses believe are the commercial success? I am really curious now.
So I don't know. I really think differently from many publishers, because I had marked 3, 4, or 5 subjects that I'll be writing in the future, and I presented them the list. So they were like, "No, we won't be eager to publish these contents." But I told them that I really really feel that this is something which is very unique, and there is not much content. So they believe that content such as CPC, CRPC are more of a always have a chance of exploring more, and certainly having a commercial success, because naturally these are the subjects which will never get old, right? And everyone would like to study these subjects, and these are compulsory subjects for theory purposes as well as for practical knowledge as well. But my subjects such as triple talaq, it is limited to family law. The concept of election laws, it will not be available in various universities. So I'm not saying that their thinking is wrong, because that is their profession. They need to earn their bread. So they'll certainly think on those grounds. For me, the sole purpose was, as a student, my target was to author 2 books on any subject, whether it is a commercial hit or not. I really didn't care. So that's why I focused only that part. And with God's grace, publishers finally agreed. They liked the content. I got the agreement signed. I got good payments for that. So certainly it worked well at the end of the day for both the parties. So no complaints.
No, I'm genuinely inclined on asking you how much did it get you, but I won't be that barbaric on this
And we'll
conversation
discuss
to
after
ask.
this book.
Absolutely, no commercial talk right now. But yeah, I think I was having a conversation with the senior that I'm currently working for, Mr. Akash Prasad, and he said something very interesting. He said, Kaustubh, if you look back, perhaps years, like not just 10, 20 years, 100 years, or perhaps 200 years, you wouldn't recognize all those stalwart lawyers. Like you remember lawyers like advocates like Mr. Palkewala or all those legends that we've had, because they are rather contemporary in the timeline. Like they are there, they were after or sometime after the independence here. But if you look at the older ages, the only lawyers or the advocate names that you remember are the ones who've authored books like Pollock and Mullah, and all these authors who have brought their content and have carried out a legacy, which I think is very very impressive in a way, where we see how we will be remembered in future unless and until we contribute to the legal knowledge and the legal discussion, legal jurisprudence that we have right now. And I think that's why your research on all these topics is very interesting, because recently I was working on this very project of coalition of collecting all the election laws in India and making sense of it. And now that you have a book, and I've realized you have a book, my research would have been very, very convenient had I had access to your book. So yeah, with that, I think my question to you is a rather naive question, but when you sit down to write a book, and we've talked about your intention behind writing a book, when it comes to the practical aspects of writing a book, for example, researching, which is a major part of it, what are your major tips and tricks with researching that you would suggest the law students should apply for other projects as well, perhaps writing papers and articles? What do your research looks like?
So for me, it is very important that you develop your researching skills, right? And that is not a work of a day or a week or a month. It takes time. And that's why when you ask me the first question in terms of academic purposes, here the role of those academic purposes takes place. When I'm trying to study during or trying to inculcate those subjects in my classroom, and then at the same time repeating those lectures in my head after coming back to my home, and then thinking that, right, this was taught in my class, let me see the recent position or the recent judgments or precedents pertaining to this very topic. So that really helped me in a way. I never thought that this will add to my researching skills, but it certainly did, and I can proudly say that. So it is not a small work, or it is not something which you will able to inculcate upon yourself in a day or two. It will take time, and that's why it is very important that from the very first day of your law school, or from the very first semester or first year, you start researching upon whatever has been taught. I'm not saying just learn to use SCC, Manupatra from the very first day. Eventually, in those 5 years, at some point of time, during your internships, during your mooting, during any classroom adventures, you will learn that. But these small criterias are really important. So that really contributed to my researching skills, which I believe. Also, the fact that whenever any teacher used to say that, okay, today I'm giving you a free lecture, I quickly used to take permission of my teacher and run towards library so that I can sit on the computer and read certain books on that particular subject. So I had that motivation and made sure that I enjoy that process, right? Because we see in India a lot of professionals who are eventually successful in their career but are not enjoying their profession. So I never wanted that very segment to take place with me eventually, at least during those 5 years. So I used to take pride. Eventually, many students used to criticize, sometimes made fun that he never likes to take any break, or if any teacher says that I don't want to teach today, I'll be the only person, which I should not say during this interview publicly, who used to say, "नहीं मैम मुझे पढ़ना है, थोड़ा सा पढ़ा दो." So if the teacher is not teaching, I used to very graciously say, right, ma'am, then I'll utilize my time in library. So that also really helped. So I always felt that my time is very valuable. So I don't want to waste those 6 hours which I'm giving to my college by only sitting and giggling with my friends. Right, that is also very important to refresh your mind. But that can take place maybe for 10-15 minutes, which are enough. So after that, after my college used to end, I used to sit in the computer lab or the library till the time it was allowed for a student. So the maximum amount which I could have given during those 6 hours whenever I used to get free, those small traits also helped me. And of course, researching is something which you have to keep on doing. It comes with practice. So if so theoretical knowledge certainly helped me, but the major contribution which I believe is also those extracurricular activities. Because whenever you're participating in those extracurricular activities, you can't go to that competition without preparing anything. There will be certain students, but I always believe that that is surely a wastage of time and money at the same time. So if you're going at any particular place, any competition, whether it is a moot court, debating, MUNs for that matter, you have to research. And research is involved in every segment, especially in our career. Whether you have to study or you have to inculcate your time academically, you have to research. Books are there, but additionally you can research. If you have to do mooting, without research, I don't believe mooting can be done. There will be certain speakers you will find who will say कि हमें तो सिर्फ argue करना है, वो हम कर देंगे कुछ भी बोल के. That may help in the preliminary rounds, but that will not give you the success to win that particular moot court. So again, hardcore research is very important. A detailed research is very important. Similarly, for debating, if you are given any particular topic, you can't just go there and speak, because there will be 50 or 100 other competitors along with you who have researched something. So if you have to be the best or better than them, you have to have certain new material which is certainly making them believe, or making that person believe that yes, I have the research with me, so I don't need to worry, at least on that very aspect in my competition. So similarly, these extracurricular activities throughout these 5 years and my focus in academics certainly helped in creating that researching skills, and which eventually helped me to write these books. Because again, for writing books, researching skill is really important. In mooting, you may have the oral skills. In debating, you may have the oral skills. But researching at the end of the day is something which is a common feature in each and every segment of law.
Perfect. Perfect. I think I was lost for a minute. I was just listening to you so intently, trying to grasp every word of it and try to apply it on my own self, because I think when it comes to researching as a discipline, it requires a lot of dedication. And as you said, that it sort of comes naturally to you, that you're genuinely interested in studying, in reading more about the lectures that are happening, and somehow curating that knowledge which is required. Now, I think as we sort of come to the last set of questions that I have for you, one of the major ones, and was having this conversation with a friend today itself, when they asked me, Kaustubh, how can we develop, let's say, the language skills, the ability to master a language? And I could only think of one thing that Mr. Bharachuk said once in one of his interviews. But I think he said it to me when I was interviewing him as well, that one way that he looks at someone's clarity of thought is how well can he write something, or she can write something, the way you write and you communicate your opinion through that. So your ability to write a book that gets published and gets you good returns as well, good reviews as well, must show that you have a command over language and you have the ability to communicate through that. My question straightforward to you is, how can someone develop that skill, that command over language?
Right. So having command over language again is very important, especially in our profession. So if you dream to be an arguing counsel or see yourself as a senior advocate maybe after many years, and if you're not having the confidence to speak publicly, then that trait is not matching your dream. And eventually, if you're not looking at that very aspect, even if you're thinking that I have to work in a firm culture or grow with a firm or as an in-house counsel, verbal communication is very, very important. You can't always communicate on emails or WhatsApp or phone calls. Whenever you are coming or having interactions with your bosses, if you are not having that confidence, that will certainly have an impact in your career. And the person who is talking to you will certainly able to recognize that very feature in you. So again, I was very fortunate that my parents, from the age of 4, had always pushed me to these extracurricular activities where I had to speak. So having an experience of 21 years certainly helps. Number one. Number two, it's never too late. So when I mentioned in one of the answers that many students become serious for their profession in the later part of the second year or in the early stage of their third year. So I have practically and I have experienced this, that I saw various classmates or batchmates after third year who motivated themselves that right, even if I haven't participated in a debate competition, I'll make sure that I'll do that, because these public speaking exercises certainly helps. In a classroom there are generally say 30 to 40 students. You slowly and gradually become confident to speak among themselves, and when you see those faces every day, it becomes a really a big normalcy of your life. Eventually that 40 has to grow to 50, then that eventually has to grow to from 50 to 100. So this is again a slow and a beautiful process at the same time. If you ask any public speaker, they will say that they had to struggle a lot in their initial careers, but eventually they went and certainly achieved whatever they wanted to achieve. So certainly public speaking is an art which is certainly achievable, but you need to motivate and create that passion in yourself. So public speaking is something, or in normal life also, my relatives always tell me that Kuber, you should speak less because I love speaking. So whether it is in my normal life or as a part of any competition, I just love speaking. So it is a trait which was developed when I was 4 years old, and naturally it will help me at this age when I'm 24 and soon to be 25. So certainly these experiences help. But if you have not started from your school days, and even if you have not started in your college days, it is never too late. You can join other sessions. You can, and eventually during this pandemic, I feel that attending your meetings via Zoom or any other medium certainly makes it a bit easier to communicate, which I again personally believe. Many may differ with my idea. But while public speaking on a stage in front of thousands of people, uh, it is difficult. But here at least you can switch off your camera, or certain people keep a piece of paper in front of them. So I really don't mind that if people are doing that and if it is helping them in improving. But I always tell my juniors or my batchmates that if you really want to improve, keep aside that piece of paper. Because once you are able to speak without any material in hand, or without approaching or referring anything, in at least in normal meetings, that will give you the confidence that yes, I can speak by matching the other person's tone. I can walk the talk whatever I'm saying. So that small incultations also helps. So I always believe that in a process, it is very important that you take the large steps, but it is equally important that you take those small steps. Because when you in totality see those small steps, it is a big major step at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful. I think I have anyone who's connected with you on LinkedIn has seen that you've been speaking a lot of webinars, you've been guest speaking a lot of platforms, and what you say that now after COVID, especially when we realize that this technology has evolved and given us the opportunity to connect with so many people, I think it's a blessing in a way. I wouldn't have had a podcast started if I were to restrict myself in person interviews because that was logistically a nightmare unless and until I was ready to invest a lot. Right now, it's very convenient, also very rewarding in many ways. Which I believe, whatever you said, the ability to communicate, the ability to master the thought word relationship, that linkage, the ability to craft your answers, to craft your speech is very, very important. And I think that comes from experience of debating so much, of doing client counseling and negotiations. So here's my final question to you. You've spoken on webinars, you've spoken on many topics, and you've interacted with a lot of law students naturally. And you've also participated as a law student in almost every possible format of competition. And you have also performed very well in academics. One simple question is, if you were to advise your younger self, your first year self, okay, for the next 4 years, 5 years, this is how perhaps you should craft your next 5 years, or this is how you should react to the situations that come forward, what would your suggestions be?
My first suggestion would be to not to think a lot, never overthink, especially during that stage of time. Uh, just live in the present and enjoy this process. What I personally observed during my first semester, when you have given your boards exams, you generally feel now this is the time to relax. But I felt that that was the time when you have to work really hard so that your basics are created and you get a head start. I observed various students who were literally relaxing, wanted to do parties or interact with many new people, and that is very normal, because when you see new faces, you really want to interact, know about other person, want to go to other places, and that is very normal. But at the same time, if if you learn the art of balancing at an early age or at an early stage, that will really help you in your career as well. Because law is a profession which is really demanding. It does not see whether today is Saturday or a Sunday. It does not see whether it is a weekday or a weekend. For you, you have to balance it out. If you have completed your work well in advance, that's a win-win situation for you. But if you haven't, you have no other option, but you have to complete the work. So when you see yourself in the first year or as a first semester student, the art of balancing and not to overthink, which is, I believe, the most difficult job, especially in today's time, to not to overthink. So these are the only two things, and keep it simple. There is nothing, there is no requirement for you to think a lot that what will happen in the next 2 years or what will happen in the next 5 years. That is purely not required. Just stay sincere, stay focused, and listen to your teachers. I'm not saying seniors, because sometimes there will be a group of seniors who might not be the ideal people to interact with. And during the first semester, first year, generally you don't realize that factor. So I always suggest that during first or second year, make sure that you're close to your teachers in terms of discussions, so that they will be the best persons who will be having the best adequate experience, who will tell you that how can you nourish your skills, whether it is public speaking, whether it is researching, or any other trade that you want to invest upon. So just keep it simple, and focus on the basics during the initial stage, and slowly and steadily you will grow and focus on that.
Perfect. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I think this is we, as law students or someone who is a part of a legal community or is in the final year, I believe we don't tend to have this conversation very often. And this kind of conversation, especially for the law students who are joining law school now, who do not have that direct interaction with their seniors, actually are missing out on some serious kind of an information, especially from someone who has done it all in every possible format, who's done it all. So yeah, I think this is a phenomenal conversation. Everything that we've talked about, all the books, all the links to all the books will be listed down in the description for all the viewers to please access them. And every possible format of your success in your accomplishments and your achievement obviously come from your undying spirit of education, undying thirst for knowledge and the ability to grow, which I genuinely appreciate. I enjoy talking to people who believe growth is a necessary part of your human evolution, and I think that is where the true essence of us individuals as professions lie. That we become better with every stage, and this is a kind of conversation that triggers that instinct inside me to get better. I'm now motivated, all pumped up to work for my next mood. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And before we wrap this up, do you have any closing remarks?
Firstly, thank you so much, Pastor, for having me in this wonderful conversation. And I really, really enjoyed interacting with you. In fact, I would like to praise you, because I have been observing you from quite some time on LinkedIn or on YouTube, basically.
Mhm.
And it really motivates me also, that wow, this person is doing such a wonderful job, and at the same
Thank
time
you.
makes me happy that
Thank
right,
you.
everything is possible. So I'm really impressed with your work, and thank you so much, and all the best. I really hope, and I'm pretty sure that One Take Show will one of the biggest hits in the coming years, and it will be trending in on YouTube in top 10 certainly. So I really hope that during that success time, you pick my calls and answer to my calls.
My
So
God.
so
Sir,
it
I
works.
think I think we've reserved the conversation about your YouTube channel for some other time, but the idea that you're propounding right now, no law student genuinely wants to have a huge YouTube channel, except for if it brings me clients. So if it is going to bring me clients, sure, why not? And in that case, I'm going to pick up every single call, every single one of them.
Yeah,
So
that's really important. That's really important, and
yeah,
and that's a good investment, I must say. So you have a good business sense along with the legal sense. So I must congratulate on to you on that.
perfect. This was a wonderful conversation. I'm really happy that we did it. Thank you so much, Kuber. And I had a wonderful time. I hope that we can connect again soon. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Costa. Thank you so much.